Okay, welcome everyone. It's 6:31 PM. I'm calling the meeting to order.
Cat's gone. Do we still have a quorum? Oh, she's back. Never mind.
Okay, all right.
She must be having a connection issue.
All right, so I'm gonna pass it off to Design Lab to start us off. Presentation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're currently at workshop 7. It's really workshop 9, but we had a few intermediary ones that we called 4.1 and 6.1. It says 7 out of 8. So we are rapidly approaching the end of really designing this building. And we are also moving into really doing the detailing of this. So just jumping ahead there, let's see if this,
Is it on?
what our lead times are on this.
There you go.
So we're getting to halfway through construction documents. We're still a few weeks away from that. But we've, in the past few weeks, well, we had the ZBA meeting, which talked about the last meeting. We have the new hearing coming up in a little less than 2 weeks, which we are pretty prepared for now. We're just finalizing some of the documentation for that. We are scheduling some town department meetings as well as additional staff meetings to show our kind of finalized plans to the staff and get any last feedback on that. And then we're kind of full speed ahead on doing construction document drawings. One thing that you'll see is, if you have a good memory, we had previously had the 50% CD set going out on 8/11. We've adjusted that to be 8/25 for some of the reasons that came up during VE. A lot of the engineering has to be redesigned, so we're juggling that, but the ultimate end date of this project's and start of construction is not changing. And with that came an adjustment to workshops 8. We've pushed that back a week because we wouldn't have the estimate in hand by the previous date on workshop 8.
So we will not meet on the 6th, we'll meet on the 13th instead.
Are you still going to ZBA in August?
Yes, yeah, all of that is
August
still.
7th, in 2 Mondays.
And with that, the probably the biggest note that ZBA had was meeting with the nearest abutter, which just happened today at 4 o'clock and at 5 o'clock. 4 o'clock was with the nearest abutter and 5 o'clock was with the church. Ben and the OPM team were there, as well as the Nason team. And just a quick update, we're updating all of our drawings for ZBA to account for the new finalized footprint. So the setbacks have adjusted slightly, but they're the big difference is the bump out is removed, which everybody is happy with.
So between checking that box of removing the bump out and what was a good meeting with the abutters this afternoon, if that's fair to say, quite positive. It all seemed like we're headed in a good direction, very cordial, no real complaints really of any kind, that we expect the ZBA meeting on the 7th to go pretty smoothly, based on the feedback we received a couple weeks ago. So that's all good news.
If anyone wants pizza, please have yourself. Pizza.
And I was wondering, before we start this, should we introduce Matt? Your new Jim?
Well, I'll leave it to the committee on how they want to conduct the meeting, if you think it's appropriate to do it now or wait till the end with the OPM report. It's up up to the chair.
Sure, why not? Let's
Do it now?
introduce them.
Well, a little bit, I'll kick us off here, I guess, a little bit of good bad news. The bad news is I'm departing Colliers at the end of this week, so this will be my final Randall Library Building Committee meeting. It's really been a pleasure getting to know all you folks, and I've enjoyed the time that we spent together. But I am moving on. But the good news, that's the bad news. The good news is that you're now being joined by Matt Stirs, my colleague. So I think without further ado, I might just ask Matt to say a few words about himself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Masters, project manager with Colliers. Really excited to be coming on board. We have a fantastic project here, and looking forward to getting to know everyone on the committee and members of the administration, members of the library, and members of the public. Really have a soft spot in my heart for library projects. Getting one into the early stages of construction in my hometown of Fitchburg right now. Really excited about the work. Really excited about the project, and happy to be working with John to get up to speed on where things stand, what items he's currently shepherding through process, but in a watch and learn stage at the moment, but be looking to get up to speed up and sort of studying the things of the schedule and getting to know the folks at Design Lab who've been carrying things forward.
Yeah, the onboarding process for Matt really started a couple weeks ago, I think, right?
Mhm.
We've been meeting about the project, and you've had a chance to meet Denise and Tina and Design Lab as well.
Mhm.
So he's not just coming into this project tonight.
No.
Give him some additional prep time ahead of this meeting. So, but yeah, so again, sad to leave, but you're going to be in very good hands with Matt. So that conclude our transition portion of the agenda.
We thank you, John, for all the work you did, bringing us this far. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, truly.
Onward. Just a really brief systems update, just to remind you of probably the biggest change that came out of VE is our mechanical design is really a completely different design. There's no air handler anymore. We're going with a VRF heat pump system. And these are just kind of traditional, images from Google of what these systems do generally look like. So there'll be wall cassettes, similar to like a mini split system, ceiling cassettes. Ideally, the majority of them will be in the ceiling, as well as ERVs, and what will be on the roof are condensers. So the roof equipment is significantly smaller. With this comes a much better price. There is some efficiency loss and control loss, but it is ultimately a good system that will also meet the code. I believe Audrey is going to update you on some plan updates that we massaged in the last couple of weeks.
So we made a lot of the changes that we talked about last week, or not last week, but last meeting. Reducing the size of the community meeting room, getting rid of the bump out, shifting the elevator, and so that's big picture look at it. We did shift the angle of the community meeting room wall so that it aligns more with the property line. And overall, while we are still smaller than the meeting room that we had before all the VE, we think it's a more functional space. It seems to flow a little bit better. And we didn't put it back all 6 feet that we suggested last meeting. We kind of met in the middle with reducing it by like 1 row of seats. And then we shifting the elevator down and creating the space between the ramp and the small stairs has really started to open up that connection and open up really condense like the circulation gasket, I guess, so like the stairs that go up to the upper level, the ramp, the elevator, and so we were able to add in a little bit of a seating area that will start to like talk back with the interior turret seating area. And then, all of those changes then reflect up on the upper level, and so with the shift of the elevator, we really did try to open up the entrance to the children's space. And so by doing that, we pulled it back so that it was we pulled it back and allowed to have a bit of seating area there as well, so that there is a little bit more of a rest outside of the children's space. We reduced the size of the double height spaces, but they're still in those same locations and having that same character. And then as the children's collection did get smaller, it has like the same sort of effect as the community meeting room, where it is smaller, but it's much more functional. It's a lot more streamlined inside. There's not as many crazy like corners of the walls. So we think that that works a bit better. And we brought the break room up to the upper level instead of being the bump out. And then this and the next slide are really just the comparison between where we were before all the VE, so what we had in the DD, and then where we are now. So you can kind of compare. Not too much has changed, but the changes we think help make the building flow a bit better.
So even though like all these plan adjustments were in reaction to the budget, you know, to our estimate coming out of DD, it I think has landed in a really positive spot. The refinements have been good, even though they were kind of reactionary to the budget. And yeah, some spaces have gotten a little smaller, double height spaces have gotten smaller, but overall the plan feels very efficient, a very efficient use of space, but all of the arrangements and adjacencies feel appropriate and as good, if not better, than where we were at DD. So a little bit of a silver lining, I think, to that process. And in the end, the community room is seating, you know, we've got 30 seats in there at the moment. So it's, you know, it was 35, we lost a row, or maybe it was 36, but it's still a good size room to meet your needs.
And just to clarify, the meeting space, that's 30 actual chairs and seats. So if there was like a kids program with kids sitting on the floor, it can be much more than a 30 capacity room.
Yeah, code wouldn't, well, yeah, we actually have 2 points of egress out of there, so we could have a larger capacity, but
Yes, standing room would be a lot more.
it would if you were so inclined. I mean, it's not a huge space, but you could get more people in there, but that's sort of a comfortable number to be thinking about.
Yeah, and some of these changes probably would have happened without the VE process. Like you can see the bookcase in the corner pushed up against the restrooms, which makes that space look and feel a lot bigger. You'll see some renderings in a bit. The workroom, 3 corners, the lower left corner became just 1 corner, which changed the exterior a little bit, but it gave that workroom a lot more space just by that one little
Yeah,
shift.
it's
So
much more functional now.
there's all this massaging that we've been doing that was all part of this process anyway.
I mean, the fact that this plan works a little bit better. We do have that seating area by the children's. It does connect. It kind of talks to the seating area that we added below it as well. And
It does, it works in a few ways. It is like waiting outside the children's room. immediately I went to stroller storage. You could park your stroller outside of the children's library instead of in between all the bookcases, and doesn't actually affect any door swings or anything. That's also where one of our high dormers is. So those dormers are no longer just in the children's library, and they're kind of, one is for everyone and one is for the children. There's a nice dichotomy between those two. And it just makes the book storage a little more efficient with straighter walls.
Children's collection feels bigger, not smaller.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's funny when you squint your eyes and just kind of look at it, it's because we've made the wall alignments. It's kind of like two rectangular spaces now that are joining, whereas before it was almost three, which was a little too much. So again, a bit of a silver lining to the process.
So I'm curious about how 100 square feet was added to the lobby. And the restroom grew in size, the break room was added. Is that simply the function of straightening out walls?
And we removed, I think, a teeny bit over 100 square feet of double height space.
Oh, okay,
So that's where a lot of
Yeah, there's
space was found.
got it, okay.
But, and also like that shaft on the previous plan above the elevator,
Mhm.
we don't need something nearly that large anymore. So that space
Okay.
has also technically been taken up by other program, which is the elevator machine room. But so there are all these little spaces that ultimately do add up to a bigger recapturing.
I saw it on there.
100 square feet at that.
With a brick wall.
Well, that was I have actually two questions. One, is there a brick wall there? Because I thought at one point there was talk that it was replaced by wood at some point.
The
Whitney room
the
wall.
planned south wall is wood, but I believe the wall on the left is brick.
The Whitney room
So
wall
it's
is
the
brick.
Whitney
This
room wall
wall.
in the bathroom, where the bathroom is now.
Yes,
Huh, interesting.
at least as the records
Thank you.
show, it is.
Okay.
The finishes are pretty similar to what we showed last time. We have a pretty neutral palette, especially on the floor, with a gray kind of field, with a lighter gray accent for the carpet tiling and the collections and meeting rooms, including the teen room. And then the lobby and circulation have a kind of softer cork flooring. And that gets a little bit lighter as you move farther plan east into a harder, large format tile in the corner, and then a resilient flooring in the community room. It'll just be really tough and durable for moving furniture around, and works really well. And pretty standard tiling in the bathroom. On the second floor, quite similar, pretty neutral, except for the children's room. We plan on adding a pretty good amount of accent coloring in there. That space should be exciting and not quite overwhelming, but getting there. So our overall palette for the building is a lot of natural materials and neutral tones. And the neutral tones kind of bring out the texture in the natural materials really well. You can even see that happening right here. So you can see the grain of the wood pretty clearly. The brick is quite obvious here against the rest of the neutral tones. So these are spread out between all of the spaces in the room. We've looked at most of these before, but what I've been calling the more sculptural spaces have more of the natural materials within them. These are mostly the double height spaces. So this is the community living room. And we've actually been, designing this in 3D now. And we ultimately landed on how can we make this space feel a little bit larger than it is? And we think that running the wood paneling around just that first part of the level and extending it a bit below the soffits works really well. And then accenting that panel with the casing of the window above brings out the whole space really nicely. And it's a simple design, but it fits really well within this space especially, and you'll see into the rest of the building. And then all of that millwork below gets tied into that wall, and then it just simplifies as it goes up a little bit.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So it says interior turret. Is this the turret?
No, the interior turret is a name. It's just what we've been calling this space sometimes internally, because it was how we wanted to relate to the existing turret, which has like this really nice narrow feeling to it.
So in the diagram, is this the perspective of the little dot facing the door with the entrance? What angle are we
Exactly.
looking at? So is that double door the new entrance-ish?
That's the new entry.
Okay.
So you're standing, if you're back to the restroom
Yeah.
here, and you're looking at the new entry, the circulation desk off the side of the frame, and then this is the community living room
Okay.
space. Yeah, with that double height space, and you're starting to catch the glimpses into the children's room up above.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's looking out to commons. Right.
think Library Hill.
Library Hill.
Looks to me like that triangle represents a view cone.
So the browsing and arrival space adjacent to that area, again, natural materials, otherwise pretty neutral tones. And the community flex room has a little bit more detail within it, with the wood and the felt ceiling, which is a bit of a unique material within this building. But functionally, it works really well to limit sounds, and it's a really nice material and fits in with the wood ceilings that we're proposing and with the lines of the existing wainscoting. And then circulation is a lot of existing material, especially with that really strong brick wall. And then it's kind of cornered with cork floors. And so this view is looking from the circulation desk into that second double height space in the backside with a really tall window. So in this one, we've actually reversed that composition. And we have the wood on the top, which will reflect that northern light and create a bit more color within this space over the ramp. And a bit more kind of neutral color, but consistent color since it's northern light. But then the rest is complemented with the cork floor. And you can see that some of the detailing that we've been getting into here with the wood base as well. So that starts to wrap up just a little bit. And then the community room on the right, and that's the felt ceiling within there that I was referencing. And the green on the left, we're not proposing green. I think we went over this before, but that's just kind of a stand-in for a wall graphic. And that wall graphic could really be anything. We've messed around with some maps and some old images. And ultimately, these things require a lot of input and options and study. And so showing something that's not really done, we're just weren't comfortable with. It would throw off this kind of beautiful image.
I think to add, just in terms of process, there's a lot to come in terms of finishes as we get closer to our finish line of the bid documents, but then also once we get a bidder on board, this is a public bid process, so we can't specify one specific product. We have to specify a minimum of 3. So once we get a bidder on board, understand what manufacturers they've carried, we can start to refine, the exact carpet tile and the exact, wood species. And we'll be going through the finishes for the furniture at that time too, and potentially the graphic treatment on walls. So there'll be a lot more of these conversations to come, but we need to, start to dial in on the framework here for the construction documentation effort.
So these are just some of the images that we have potentially looked at, but it wouldn't be any of these or all of these. The middle right one is my personal favorite image, just a very old image of Stowe. And then the view looking up the stairs is also a very just fantastically framed view. As you walk up the stairs, you get this beautiful moment next to the existing turret, which currently is quite buried under the 70s building. So we're really exposing that and using it as a main tool in this building.
Denise, can you move out? We've got in trouble figuring out where we are.
So this is just, it's looking up the main staircase. So in the top of the
Oh,
image, there's a brick wall, and then the stacks on the right. And then on the left is that new seating area, and then a bit farther off screen would be the elevator.
It's a really nice moment. Folks are gonna love that. As
Looking
a
at the
celebration and like a dialogue between boards. Really nice.
And the meeting rooms, teen lounge and collections, again, just very neutral tones. Hopefully some white walls, white ceiling to make sure that space doesn't get too dark in there. Again, it is a lower level, but we are bringing in more light into here as much as we can. And then on the upper level, we went over these finishes earlier, but the views are similar to what we've seen. They've adjusted slightly. You can see in the back that you can kind of see the new seating area, but you can see the new glass wall. And then that elevator is represented in the same green. We are working on the staircase to try and minimize that handrail that's pushing into the opening, but with all of the head heights and the tightness of the stair, that will probably be pushed in to the opening somewhat. But it is a nice view down, nice view into the existing building, and just some unique moments there. So it's kind of walking this line of we want to open up the brick wall as much as possible in both here, but also opening the view up to it. But we also don't want to impede on this view too much either. So
What color are the existing interior walls, plaster walls right now?
In the historic part,
In the historic part, yeah.
they're like,
Off yellow.
they're like a tealish green,
Tealish green.
almost like
Well,
a
and
lighter
brown.
version of this,
Yeah.
and like a tanny brown. You almost capture it like in the window wells up there with the little windows.
oh yeah.
Like
Yeah,
a-
it's like a. powder blue.
It's not well loved.
So I'm just, I'm curious, because it's not, they were probably not white originally, right? I mean,
Right.
they might have been like that color green or something.
Yeah, I
something
thought I
really rich.
heard that they tried to match what was originally there. I don't know how they knew, but. when
Yeah, I
they
mean, you could
redid
do
it-
a sample analysis.
Yeah,
It's-
when they
It's often
redid it.
surprising. So that blue is it, that's the attempt to recreate the original?
I think so.
That's what they think. So we are proposing a more limited color in those rooms to bring out all the wood texture in there. Really what you see now is the color that was painted onto the plaster like 10 years ago, rather than the really fantastically preserved wood elements all over this floor. So using a white, there are thousands of different whites, thousands of different antique whites that we'll be reviewing along with all the other finishes, but also keeping in mind the history of these spaces, of course. And then the children's space, like I said, we do want to bring out more color in this space. It is a brand new space that really does want to be an exciting environment for children and guardians. So we have different ceiling elements with wood. We do have some felt ideas as well that's carried, and carpet colors and bookshelf colors as well. So again, the colors here are used kind of symbolically, but just to represent what this space should be expressed as. So you can see some of the kind of dormers there. They're a bit overexposed in this image, but you can see the nooks with kids in them, as well as the kind of light coloring on the carpet and the coloring of the bookshelves and wood ceiling. And then that wood on the right is actually a window into the double height space with the really tall window. So you would be able to sit there and look down into that space over the ramp as well and over the elevator. So we're really fond of this view and are excited to continue to work on it. And then, like I said about the historic rooms, we want to bring out that existing detailing more than it's expressed right now. It is really well preserved. So we're actually not proposing doing very much work to it, if any at all, really only maybe a few kind of Dutchman repairs here, so replacing a small piece of wood, but not an overhaul finish or anything. It's in really good shape. So.
I don't think I've ever seen the colors look that good.
So yeah, we just wanted to stop on all of the images, and discuss for a bit, get your thoughts.
Are the stacks, the furniture down here, are those what will be there? They placeholders for further design of the furnishings?
Placeholders.
Yeah, so that's another kind of process that we'll be going through,
Got it.
selecting furniture.
We are suggesting loose furniture in that, there'd be small cafe tables that go up against a bench and have a companion chair, but just to provide flexibility in that room, I think you could clear them out if you wanted to, but beyond that, like what they look like and what materials they are, I think one of the many finished discussions to come.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
I think it looks great. It's nice to see 3D drawings finally in some detail.
So it's happy silence.
I mean, it's modern, it's looking forward, but it's also really respectful, and referential to the historic building. Connection between them. I think in terms of like sharing this with the rest of the town, some of these interior views are going to go a long way.
Awesome. Yeah, we're seeing that bottom right view for the first time. Everything really started to click, and then they all fell into place after that. That was really great.
And I think we can see how you've been responsive to all of our feedback more here than ever. So really.
Awesome, thank you.
The feel of the sunlight in here, for everybody that was concerned about glass on the outside, if it looked like an office building or something, it doesn't look like an office building. It's gonna look great. And it's gonna be really nice, I think.
Well, let's carry that energy into the exterior design.
Could I ask one quick question? I don't know if you can hear me.
Definitely hear you.
Okay. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is super duper sketchy, but I just wanted to, you probably mentioned this, but I just want to make sure like that cork flooring is durable for like the lobby area coming in and out and getting like wet with snow and ice.
It is. I think we need to look a little more carefully at that. I think that's a very good question, and we need to think about the extent of that. Right now, we don't have the finished plan up, but we kind of have a straight shot from the entry into the community room on a porcelain tile, which is a very robust material, and then it transitions to cork as you move left in plan. We might look to massage that, foot traffic to the elevator, but we'll work on that. It is a very durable finish, but if we need to finesse it, we will.
And we recently installed that cork flooring at a building at Dartmouth College, very well-trafficked building as well. Is that all, Kat?
Just
Oh, sorry, let me just catch up with myself.
Andrew, what's a pizza? We have pizza.
So,
Pushing the pizza.
So the exterior design has kind of adjusted slightly based on the similar reasons that the interior design has adjusted, some for value engineering reasons, some because we're just moving the process along. And you'll see all of these, but just to remind you of what the plan looks like and the landscape plan. It's all roughly the same when looking at it this way. There are some minor changes, like the courtyard on the top right outside the community room has actually gotten a little bit larger because the community room got a little smaller. So some things like that.
Can we go back?
Yeah. So there is a door, correct, where the ramp is?
Yeah,
The door
There
to
is
the
a
back?
door,
Okay,
yeah,
is that for like egress
that
purposes?
is an
Okay.
egress path. Yeah.
And the well we were talking about earlier? where the
So I don't know that we
slanted-
talked about that with
Oh,
Andrew.
sorry. So when we were talking with the abutter directly behind the white spot, that's the slanted wall right now in Children's. Outside, there's an enclosed brick area
Yeah,
Is- that's going.
that will be gone. It's been an artifact in our drawings that was removed yesterday from our model entirely. It's
Okay.
been a little nagging element that has been accidentally carried through, unfortunately, but it will all be.
So now that we're looking at this, so based on the abutters comments, with that removed, which he was asking to have that removed, because in the past, he said that when utility companies had to get to the utilities in the back of the building, they could not access the property from Crescent. They came in through Common Road and through his property. So he would like some pathway from Crescent Street to get to sort of behind the mechanical room where all the utilities are. But now that I look, they wouldn't be able to do that with the shrubs that are being planted.
We're not gonna have gas anymore.
But is there gonna be any meters back there that people need to get to? I didn't think about that, but yes, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But it will,
I'll
they'll
just
still
talk
be
about
electric.
doing-
Are
Those-
there electric meters over there?
I don't know what else is back there.
Yeah.
I haven't looked
noticed
back
that
there.
yet.
It was the gas company that.
It was the gas company that went across his property, and he actually wanted us to find a way to stop that in the future. I said, I can't stop the utility companies,
Well, we
but,
stopped the gas company because we're getting rid of it, so.
okay, so maybe that'll be enough, because he wanted to make sure that if someone needed to get a vehicle behind the building, they had access through only town property and not his property. And the only way that we could find after walking around that building would be from Crescent Street, but we can, he wants to minimize those shrubs anyway, so we can talk about that with landscaping.
Well, with the new design, mechanics and systems design, we'll review what's back there as well. And probably extend that.
Cross that off his list too.
And we're getting rid of the
Just moving
HVAC
it
units on the ground.
Yes.
So there's
Yeah.
a bit more room to get in there. So,
But there's more room once you get in there. It's actually getting to that point that he was his concern.
Yeah.
Because of the granite posts and the way the
Very
bump out is now that you
Oh, yeah.
can't get there, so.
Which of the two gardens near the ramp to the original entrance is intended as the head memorial garden?
The lower left.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are on the next slide. Or when we get to the one way, is that next? So I had myself.
That's later.
Oh, I'm sorry. Got ahead of myself.
Yeah. So we're gonna look at a few things that we've all looked at many, many times here, but it's all because of how important they are to the new design. All of this detailing is stuff we're still looking at and still working on, or working with, excuse me. The brick detailing is really what's most important to us right now, and just that we've discovered kind of every little brick detail within this building, whether it's the protruding kind of polka dot pattern or the triple bench weave or the sawtooth, which we found on the fireplace inside. So we've lightly updated our exterior composition, but it's still quite similar. This is the previous proposed one where we had a kind of horizontal clapboard on the back volume, and we are actually proposing a vertical composite siding now to break away a bit from the brick horizontality. But that's just on the back volume.
Sounds similar to what's on the Concord Museum.
The Concord Museum is more of a wood clapboard with a vertical batten, so it does have more vertical elements in it.
A different material than this.
But it's different material, right? It was Concord wood or was Concord composite?
It was, it was a cementitious clapboard. It
Oh, it
wasn't
was.
wood. Yeah.
So we're still using similar precedent on the left for its color and its kind of texture, but on the right is more of what we're proposing for the back volume. It has a nice vertical grain and vertical rhythm to it. You'll see that ours is a bit more open, but the detailing is quite fine. And then bringing those all together and seeing how they merge is kind of what this building could represent. So all of these details on screen are similar to what we are carrying along. So you do have to look closely at some of the brick, but that's kind of the point of brick sometimes. So just carrying this diagram all the way through the projects. It's just very representative where the detailing is, where the windows are, how it carries the verticality of the existing building throughout. So a new composition, just with that new vertical composite board and a better field or more representative field of what we're actually doing. Sorry. And so there's a lot of detailing here to look at. So we can sit on it for a bit. The first thing that might jump out is that the color is a little bit warmer. It's got a slightly reddish hue to it. It's actually a bit more of an orange hue. But the detailing within the vertical dormers is kind of the exact same patterning that we found on the existing building. So we're not actually going to deviate from that pattern. And then we have kind of a secondary detailing, which is called a vertical soldier bonds, which is in between the windows and above certain other windows.
So, making sense to everybody.
Mhm.
So this is kind of the protruding texture that we picked up from the main gable of the Randall building, and then these are the vertical sort of portions of the soldier pattern.
What's going on the two windows over the entrance at the top? Those brick patterns?
So that
Above the
is,
windows.
Yeah,
So the intention there, Andrew, is that we carry the sort of header detail that exists here,
Yeah.
but we take the recessed soldier below it.
so there's a shadow line there?
So there's a shadow
Okay,
line, yeah,
I
so
can read it now.
we're kind of
Yep.
like merging these windows with these windows
Yep.
in the middle.
I got you.
And all of the texture of the brick, like it's kind of exaggerated in these elevations, so you guys can see it, but it'll feel much subtler, in once it's actually constructed.
Why is the brick on the turret bottom part darker? Is that just to represent what was buried before, or is that actually a different brick?
On the historic building?
Yeah, the historic.
it's a part of the process. Unfortunately, it's a Photoshop
Oh, okay.
carryover, an accident. We're pretty sure there's granite down there, but we don't know exactly.
Oh, okay.
What it looks like.
So it is what's now concealed.
It is
Yeah.
now concealed, yeah, but it's a question mark as to what's actually there.
Can I
Yeah.
take a hammer and see what's in there?
Yeah.
Tina, I was gonna bring up during next steps, we should, in all seriousness, consider some exploratory demo.
Yeah.
Just wait for the next rainfall, it'll probably just
Oh.
fall off anyways.
Do you want to wait for comments until the end of the presentation?
Yeah, let's wait until we get through the full design. So what we previously showed was on the left. The updated condition is in the middle. It does look it's a little hard to read, but that's because the patterning has become more detailed. So we have more projections, which is exactly like the images on the right. So it's every other brick rather than what we've been showing is every other row of brick has every other brick projected. We do like this detail a lot more. It's got a lot more texture to it and a lot stronger shadow lines. But in elevation, it's kind of difficult to read. But you can also see how the color has gotten a little warmer. There's a little more varied color in the brick as well. So we're not proposing a single color monotonous brick building here. There will be a bit of variation within that color. And on the backside, what we've been calling back volume or volume B is that vertical composite board paneling. It's a little flatter, but it has a rhythm that runs all the way up and down the elevation of the building, and it fits in with the window layout really nicely, fits in with the nano wall really well. And then the backside, which really won't be visible to almost anyone, which is a good reason to go with this material as well. We're just using that variation and having a datum at the bottom, which is broken by 50% as you go up the building. And then you can kind of see where that big back window is with that big double height space breaks through that datum. So there are nice moments. But this again is the backside looking into the neighbor's kind of backyard, extended backyard with a lot of covered green landscape.
Is the material given the color, or is this finished somehow, like painted or something like that?
It's factory determined color, but it's not, we have not determined exactly the color yet, but we do think a light gray is what we'd like to move forward with most likely. We've looked at other colors. We had like the full color wheel up and we're like kind of going through it, and ultimately it was taking away from the existing building so much, and even from the main volume of the addition. So as promised, which we've been meaning to show, the before and after images. So this is the building as it exists now. And I hope this kind of clarifies why there's this new hill in the design. So you can't really see the building. We all know this quite well. So the new design exposes the historic building, steps back the addition to expose the turret even more. But focusing on the addition, you can start to see a bit of that depth that Ben was pointing to with the recessed soldier bonds above the windows and between the windows in the double height corner, as well as the dormers poking out above the tree line a little bit, and the stone wall around the building. And then on the backside, those vertical lines are they're strongly expressed in drawing. We don't think they would be quite that strong, but that's dependent on how we detail it. A quarter inch versus a half inch versus an inch shows very differently depending on how close or far away you are from it. So we're going to be studying kind of stuff down to that level of depth.
Is the courtyard wall going to echo the building base? Is it going to be the same material or is it going to be slightly different?
At the very least, it will be slightly different. That is one of the VE exercises that we worked through, and we're still working through. Actually, we'll go over that briefly. We've been talking to some prefabricated wall vendors, and the pricing is coming in a little differently than we had expected. So we're still working through that with the landscape architects, but we'll be reacting to all of that with them. So that it will ultimately be tied together in some way. And then the backside view, these views are slightly different. But of course, this is that very opaque corner of the building. And then new backsides with these open courtyards and the nano wall opening into that courtyard as well. And you can also see the back of the historic building as well. And that's because of just the way the building opens towards the street rather than closes it off as it exists now. Yeah, that's the exterior. We'd love to hear comments, opinions.
Andrew, did you want to start?
Okay. Can you go through the presentation quickly then? So we're all looking to talk about the same thing. So that one, yeah, this one here. So the proportions have improved tremendously. I think the top, middle, base is everything's right. You know, the way the windows kind of overlap between on high and the base down there below is nice. The warm neutral palette differential but compatible with the red is good, and then you can see it also as like a textural composition. It's really nice. The detailing and the depth that you've got is going to show up really well in the sunlight most times a day, and it's going to complement it really well. And I think people are going to like it. They're going to feel like a masonry kind of feel to it that is going to recall the existing building without imitating it. Nobody's going to think it looks too thin or modern or cheap or anything. That detail transition from the roof to the vertical wall will be pretty cool. I think that's gonna be pretty slick. And I like the volume behind, I like that you differentiated that. And if you go two more slides
Back.
and forward, yeah, one more. Side, I think these play off each other in a way that it's gonna look better than it does in this really flattened view. The back, I think the back actually looks great. No, it looks really nice. If this is the material that I'm kind of thinking of. And it's going to be an approach that a lot of people get, and I think it's not really gonna feel like the back, but it will be the back because of the hierarchy of materials. So I think it's going in a great direction. And I think seeing materials kind of mocked up will probably bring it to life for people. And then just one last thing on the plan, the landscaping, I know is coming up next. What's going next?
Yes.
It's looking good.
Yeah, thank you a lot. I mean, we've spent a lot of time on it. We're excited about where it's headed as well. We're anxious to start picking the actual brick and getting into all that, the actual stone, looking at the mock-ups of the detailing. The rear volume, the community room volume, sort of, it's fair to say economy is the goal there in terms of the cladding, but we do want it to feel obviously complementary to the addition and the original building. And I think the switch there to the sort of vertical expression makes a lot of sense to differentiate it from the primary volume of the addition, but also, it did get shorter as part of the value management issue, and it is kind of a long bar along the back, and we could look at different variations of a horizontal strategy, and it's too long and short of a volume for that to work proportionally. So we feel, all of the datums kind of check out. You can see the horizontal lines kind of carry on from the primary volume to the secondary volume, but the vertical expression, I think, is working quite well.
I think the way you've picked up the details and everything else carried over from the original building is great. I hate to say, I still don't like the gray. I think if you look at it from the front, they look like two completely separate structures. I think a lot of people driving by, most of the residents are not going to feel like it was as complementary to the original building as it could be. I don't know if we have interest in getting input from the community, but I think there's going to be some negative feedback about how different it looks from the original. I appreciate all the effort in bringing in the little details, but from driving by on 117, that's not going to be as appreciated as it is by all of us. And I just think and when you show that other building that has the sort of Richardsonian Romanesque building with the gray next to it, I don't know why we're talking about that, because I don't know, that's just one way this was addressed by someone. There's a big gray building next to it, but to me, this looks like a big gray building next to the original library. And I wish that we could do something besides the gray, or incorporate something that ties it better in terms of the color, just the color. That's what I have issue with, but I think the rest of it looks great. And I'm asking, do you want this to be seen by the community at this point and get input? Because I can get that if you want it. But I have a feeling it's not going to be as well received by the general population.
I guess maybe the question is, is it gonna be some negative feedback, or do things be mostly negative feedback? Or we're not gonna get unanimous, I mean, people have
No.
different tastes.
Right. I'd like to know what the majority is.
I would love to know that too. I wonder how to do that.
Well,
in
the
this
last
time.
time I reached out to get some community input is when we had a lot of people attending the meeting and tuning in. And I think we could do that again if we showed this. Is this what you want to see? This is where we stand. And I obviously have a lot of good things to say about it. I would be very neutral in my approach to try to get people to attend the next meeting and give their feedback. It may be all wonderful, but I want to make sure that we haven't shown anything to the public. And you can say that they could come to all the meetings and all of that, but we haven't made a real effort to show anything this far advanced to the public
Are these not posted on the website? They are.
yet. It all is, but ask the average resident how many times they've been to the library renovation website. 0. It has to be a push and not a, not a pull.
Is changing the color, that doesn't impact the price, correct? So if it's brick, but a different color of brick, so it wouldn't affect the process that we need to get to for a special town meeting if we were still discussing the color. Is that
It
correct?
would not. I mean, we're technically still discussing the color. We haven't landed on an exact brick composition yet.
And I totally understand about
So-
not trying to match the original brick. I totally get that. I was just hoping that it would be something not so dramatically different.
My concern with bringing it to the public is exactly what you said, is I think innately it's this desire to match it, which is what they did with the 70s edition. And I think initially, yes, of course you want it to match, but that's my concern, is that people want it to match. And even the abutter said it today, I would like to see it red brick. And it's like, it just can't be red brick.
Well, I mean, that can, we're not asking people, we're asking people to participate in the discussion, and it can be opened as, we cannot match the brick. We cannot have red brick because we cannot match the original brick. And it would look like a denim shirt with denim pants, that whole black shirt, that whole discussion. And I think people are smart enough to get that. I just feel like the gray is such a departure from the original brick. It just looks like a separate building. But to Denise, but we can still talk about color without slowing the process down.
Right, that's my only concern. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of the gray. I just never have been. I like the design, but I'm not weighing in on it. I don't live here. This is a resident discussion. But if we have time to still consider the color palette and what to do, and it's not going to impact our timeline or the budget process or where we need to be in order to get this project to completion, then I think we should have some further conversation. What that looks like, I don't know. But I would agree, the majority of the people that I hear from that have seen it in some capacity are not a fan of such a dramatic difference in the buildings.
So I think, well, I guess I have a lot of thoughts, but I'll limit them. I mean, we certainly welcome more community input, but I will say, dramatic departure from where we are now, if it's not just a change in blend of brick or tone of brick, would likely disrupt the schedule. If it's a matter of, getting feedback on the tone and blend of the brick itself, then sure, we can manage that. But I guess I wonder, Melissa, what you say you don't want it to be such a departure from a color perspective, but you also recognize that, we can't do the exact same red. Where are you?
Well, like I was saying, maybe the sandstone color that appears in the original building. Could we go something, I don't want to call it pink, but it's, I don't know what color you would call it. Where the trim, the sandstone trim,
Yeah.
something closer to that.
We can certainly look at it again. I think that gets into where we were at our last workshop before the value management workshop, whatever that was, workshop 6, where, we had the black on black or the denim on denim conversation. Being in the red tone family, I think is very tricky and would likely be a mistake. There's we talked about this during that workshop. The tone and the size and the coursing and even the masonry, the space of the mortar of the original brick is so distinct that we need to take a step away from that for the masonry of this building to feel appropriate.
So is there no color closer to like the sandstone that we could try and see?
We'll go, Andrew, do you mind clicking back to the photos? I mean, even that, I think, is so close to the color of the brick that it's not distinct enough.
So we'll actually go forward one. Okay.
So even that image to the left, it's dirty,
Yeah.
obviously, that arched piece of sandstone around
Right.
the detail, but it's quite similar.
Yeah.
And to find a brick that one would match the sandstone, but then would feel distinct enough from the field of the brick, I don't think we would be successful.
Can you, I don't know whether you're going forward, let's see, go
Sure.
forward to the one that, no, maybe go back. The one that has the Richardson, the other Richardson was on that one. Okay, you see the brick on the right? Except
It's
that,
a different building.
I know it's a different building, but that's my point, is that, what about that color? That's not gonna work with our darker brick?
It's more of a brown.
It's too-
I don't think it would work well. I don't want to be overly blunt, but we thought about this a lot, and at the last presentation, we had the whole conversation about going away from a brick tone and a red tone, excuse me, and I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, can you go back to the last image? The final image, I guess. that was Lisa. I just want to say, first of all, I like the building a lot. And I think that the gray is good because it's deferential to the original building. But the images I see, whatever the one I was looking at, which I can't see anymore, but the gray still looks like a cold gray to me. And I don't know if that's the function of the picture rather than the material that you're selecting. But that may be what Melissa's reacting to. I mean, it's still,
Go back.
it's not this picture, but it was the, I don't know where, that, no.
This one?
I don't know, anyway,
This one?
that was that one. It's still, I would still see that gray as cold.
Okay.
And I know you said you can expect warm gray, and maybe it's just the way it's coming out in the picture.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair comment, and I think, you know, we haven't gotten to the point yet where we're at the brickyard looking at blends of bricks and selecting them. This is all obviously Photoshop and our
Right.
intent, but anyway, I said this at the last meeting too, there's a million different shades of gray, there's a million different shades of every color, and we're gonna need to work very critically to find the right.
Yeah,
blend
it
of
wasn't a
gray.
criticism.
Yeah,
It was trying to understand the picture.
yeah,
And I really like the way it worked in the brick detailing and stuff, and I like I don't know, the texture of the building really appeals to me a lot. So,
Are these gonna be like, what material is the brick you're thinking of?
meaning
I mean, like cement bricks or clay bricks or?
likely be clay. Yeah, I mean, they'll be full bricks, they won't be a veneer. So, I mean, we need to get to that level of selection, but, you know, our intention is when the time
are
comes. is to-
bricks made? Are bricks made to order in a certain color, or is you just take what the brick kilns made?
I mean, you can custom color bricks, that's not what we're proposing.
No,
What we will likely land on is selecting 2 or 3 different colors of brick or 2 or 3 different pre-manufactured blends that have their own variation in them, and we will be, you know, saying we want 20% of this, we want 40%
be
of
a
that.
mix.
And it'll be a
So
mix that we develop specific to this project, call it sort of semi-custom. It'll be a blend of pre-manufactured colors.
I'm wondering if it's just a lot lighter in tone than the original building. And if that makes it jump out more. I'm not suggesting we go darker toward a darker gray, but adding some brown or a darker warm gray, maybe just won't make it seem so dramatically different than the original building. And, you know,
That's an interesting point, because a light gray can read white. I mean, I painted my shed when I thought it was gray, it looks white, because things look much brighter outside. And the contrast with the roof
yeah,
might be part of that.
Yeah.
So I think you might be on to something there. Exploring. like
and
a
I'm
brownish
sure
gray
it's
or
very
something,
hard to figure it out in Photoshop.
Yeah.
It's gonna have
Yeah.
to be figured out in
Yeah.
bricks.
Yeah, and I think, if I could frame this, it could be like a matter of taste, but to me, it's a little philosophical. And I think we said at the beginning that this library should kind of reflect the town and its long history, but also its future and where it is now. And this is a town that has probably more than doubled its population in the last 30, 40 years. So I think being deferential to the existing building is important. I think referring to it in the detail, but also being different and progressive. I mean, we have this drove here electric cars, which nobody was using or would have thought looked really weird, even as they are, 5 years ago. So I think having something that is contemporary and forward-looking and progressive, like I think this community and its people are, is important. And what that is something to talk, and whether or not that looks good or right is a whole other issue too. Because there are just issues of tone that you're talking about, but I think philosophically having it not match for matching sake is actually important.
Right, and I think this exterior does a really good job of mixing, sort of contemporary with and yet echoing the original building. It's just that I don't want it to just jump out so much as this is the new part of the building. This is different. I'd like it to be a little more subtle in the color. Because this is what you see when you drive by on the main road. This is what the residents are gonna see. And again, if it's bright and jumping out, I think that's not what they were looking for. And it's just also so different from this, which is a good thing, the 70s edition, that it's going to be, it's gonna be a shocker to people. And see, it looks really white there. And I don't think it,
Well, look at the other building.
I know, it
Doesn't
looks
look
very
correct
dark.
Either. Well,
Coloring,
Right.
so there's
Historic.
So much
situation,
information.
So I don't know, I would encourage you to wait a bit until the architects can come back with better color samples. I mean, if your issue is with the color as opposed to the building.
Well,
That seems-
before the next meeting, we're gonna be at the building with bricks in our hands. Making sure that it is kind of what we thought it was. We're gonna go back to the brickyard. We're gonna get dozens more bricks. And we're gonna make sure these colors are what we're thinking. And yeah, a brick building is hard to represent because its scale changes so dramatically as you get closer to it, like the classic architectural speak, but like the 10,000-foot view is very different than the 1-foot view where you can actually see the iron leaking out of each brick. And so once we do that, we will, we will be looking at this in a very different view at that point, even though we have had bricks in our hand already. But we haven't with kind of this white tone in mind as much. We do have a lot of gray bricks at our office, but they are like the way you look at a brick and the way you look at the image is just very different. And so it is hard to, I guess, make a decision off of only one scale of this view.
Can you, when you get brick samples that I hope you'll show us, can you get some that are close to the original building so that we can see them side by side? Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, we can, but I think what would probably be more impactful for everybody would be to look at it at the site.
Yeah.
And we can do our best to facilitate that, and we'll certainly do that before the end of the CD period. But ultimately, what we'll do is we'll specify as part of the contract documents a mock-up. Meaning that the masons who are hired to actually build the building will build us a mock-up based on the bricks that we think are right, and then we'll be able to look at them together and make that decision. Are we on the right track, or do we need to adjust course? And we may even do this, and we've done this on a lot of masonry buildings where we specify we want maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 mock-ups, only 3 feet by 4 feet or whatever, so that we can look at different blends together and we can get them closer to the original building, look them at the morning, look at them in the afternoon under different lighting conditions, and make the decision. So it's not like we're deciding tonight or even at the end of the CD period what exactly the bricks are.
Right.
It'll go into the construction process.
So we're talking about maybe a warmer gray and maybe something, I hate to use the term darker, but deeper, so it doesn't look so white.
Well,
Can you help me with that, Andrew?
Closer in tone. but
Closer in
not,
tone to
um,
the original building.
Hue or such.
Yeah, we'll explore a bit more color.
Thank you.
It's also something that the mortar color will have a dramatic effect on.
It'll
So
have a
that's
huge
another
impact.
reason to construct the mock-ups in situ, to evaluate that, because that can change it dramatically.
Brick walls like 30% mortar. It's surprising.
Can I ask a quick question about just approval process and kind of ties to the schedule? Does the exterior committee make a recommendation to the larger committee on how to proceed with the facade and landscaping? And when are we tracking that to take place?
I don't think we have it specifically
Yeah.
tracked, it's whenever it needs to happen.
Okay, we should probably pinpoint a date when that recommendation is made, as we're marching towards 50% CDs. But it sounds like we've got some material review to happen before that can take place. So,
If there aren't any more comments, I mean, we have everything we need to kind of push this much farther forwards with the detailing, and we can draw now down to the inch and figure out some of the stuff that you couldn't see in this view. It's kind of similar to being able to choose the brick, choosing the mortar color or the silicon on the windows and stuff like that. So this is extremely helpful if we kind of agree on this layout and the detailing and the brick bonding, things like that. Awesome. Well, quick update on the landscape. The landscape has been a pretty positive subject throughout this design phase, and it's just in our minds continue to move in that direction. And it's quite similar to where it's been. It's been on a pretty linear path. But one thing that we wanted to make clear is we are designing to a one-way street, and the reason I want to make that clear is because if that ultimately changes, that will affect the schedule of this project and the construction schedule. So we just want to kind of have that said during the meeting.
Yeah, we're hedging our bets, so to speak, that the one-way change to common road will be approved, and our landscape will be able to integrate into that rather than having to maintain the two-way street. If we get in September, when we're hoping to get resolution or direction on this, that we do have to maintain the two-way street, it'll either mean we have to slightly push back the CDs, or we have to issue an addendum during the bidding process, or if it comes later than September, it's possible that we would have to issue something after the contract is issued to the contractor to make the adjustment. So we all feel pretty positive about the one-way, and just based on what we've heard, and that it's going to likely, knock on wood, get approved, and we'll just kind of fall seamlessly into it. But we wanted to make that point for everybody this evening.
Can I chime in on that?
Absolutely.
So just so everyone's aware, based on our bylaws, it's the select board that would make that decision. A few years ago, I created a traffic safety advisory committee specifically to review traffic concerns. They have reviewed this and diplomatically worded it. The two chiefs are very much in favor of making it a one-way for safety reasons. The other two members of the committee were not entirely sold for different reasons, but they do not see that it would be any safety impediment to make it a one-way. On this August 8th select board agenda, I have the discussion for the board to give a preliminary blessing to say, yes, they support it, which I do believe in concept because we've talked about it theoretically over the last year. Should they give it the go-ahead, then the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee would hold a formal public hearing. I would encourage those of you on the committee that support this project to participate in that as much as possible. I'll be honest, all we're hearing is negative. People are out there in the community, we're not gonna be able to take a left on 117, it's gonna be a nightmare, there's gonna be traffic. So I think it will be very helpful to get support at the select board meeting, the public hearing. And what I have tried to reiterate that is, you know, the one way is not just because of the library. Since I've been here, I've been hearing from the police chief that it's a problem, it's a safety concern. But timing wise, it makes sense to now do it as part of the project. The expectation would be that if this goes ahead and everyone approves the one way, during the construction period of the library, I would expect sort of that portion of Common Road to be closed throughout the construction for staging and equipment and whatnot. And then when the project is done and the road is reopened, it would formally then be its one-way capacity. During that time, the planning board is doing a overall traffic study of this town center. Their hesitation of making it a one-way is they feel that we should wait until the end of the study to see if the study says it should be a one-way. My feeling is the opposite. I feel like we should say it's a one-way and let them work that into the study and how to make it work as a one-way. We know we want it to be a one-way, now make it work safely in our center. So a little difference of opinion on philosophy, but again, ultimately it's the select board. So again, I would just urge, show up and support.
Are you talking
'cause-
about the August 8th meeting?
So August 8th, I don't know how much public comment the board will allow. I think the public hearing will be more important, and that has not been scheduled yet. But like anything, the naysayers are the ones that show up,
And
so
will you mark your calendar to tell us?
I certainly will, I certainly will. Because I just think as we're getting nearer to not really the completion, but nearer to the point that we're ready to start going out to bid on this, it needs support to just get us over these last sort of hurdles. So again, I would urge you to in whatever capacity you could express the support for a one-way as part of this project would be helpful.
So what do people complain about? They can't take a left on one, why do they go down Common Road?
So if it is,
To beat the light?
yes, so right now it's a major cut through. If it's made a one-way, it would only be a one-way for the library portion.
I would never do that.
Well, they do in the morning, because the morning, there's not much traffic, so people go through there. But it would only be a one-way for the library portion. The church would remain a two-way. So that they can come in and out of there. So the church members are concerned that their members would have to take a left onto 117. Because they don't wanna, right, was that what he was saying?
Yeah.
Although they could go to the street.
If they want to go left on 117.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the other way. In order to get to the church, they would have to, so if you're coming from this part of town or from like West Acton Road, you'd have to go down Library Hill, take a left on 117 Lights and take a left into the church because you couldn't cut down Common Road. So their concern is taking a left from 117 into the church. And they actually said today, our members are gonna have to go all the way down to Shaw's and turn around because no one will let us in and take a left.
It's Sunday.
And I think, things like that can certainly be addressed with, changing that sort of end of the common, making it a little easier, changing the sight line. You could put the big X in the street so that people theoretically can't block it. They do it all day long here, but there are certain things that we can do. That to me would be part of the full traffic study, so that by the time the project is ready, we've already ironed all those things out. But, people don't like change. Another aspect of the one-way in the project is that we would be looking to take, is it 3 feet? Is that the right number from the common?
I would say between 1 and 3.
So between 1 and 3 feet from the common but if you stand out there, that it's all dirt anyways, because people park up there. So this would be sort of moving that curb in, making defined parking. Again, that's got sort of some of the historic buffs. So you're gonna touch the historic common and this is a shame and.
Show them a picture of the horses Marty's parked on it.
And again, it's safer. I mean, you'd actually have defined parking spaces. So I will say the bump out, our highway department is not pleased of, but that can easily be worked around. So those are some of the things that have, since the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee has been discussing it at their last few meetings, that's the feedback that we're hearing.
Is the bump out a street cleaning issue or is it
Snow plowing.
removal? Yeah.
I think I've got them sold on the speed table, so they were against anything, but I think they're on board with the speed table, so.
I just reiterate Denise's request if building committee members can come, because I think, yes, this will have a positive impact on the library, but it'll make it much safer for pedestrians to actually have a proper place to park in striped parallel spots. But just as a civic space for the town, I think, connecting the common and the War Memorial to the library as like a, companion space, as a more pedestrian friendly space would be hugely impactful. And I think the benefits of that exceed, the change in a traffic pattern that people will forget about in a year once it's in place.
I used the term a lot at the last workshop that like some things that we were keeping for the integrity of the project, like we didn't want to change those, and this is one of those things. And this is kind of an opportunity for the building committee to show your guys' history with this project and kind of fight for it, to make sure that we get the projects that we've been working so hard on. Because if it goes two-way, we lose some stuff here. We lose the depth of that courtyard. We probably lose the speed table. We lose the connection to the memorial, and then all these dimensions are just going to change and kind of affect the final outcome, which we won't have as much, which we won't have massaged together as well.
I think that unfortunately, the position of the library, it's not a safe place. And I think this is a safety issue. And I think we present it as though we're doing everything we can within the footprint that we have available to us to make this safer for people to get in and out of the library with their strollers. It's gonna be inconvenient to me, frankly. I live on that side. I live over there. I come in and I go, the opposite way to park. I have to go around now and take a left in front of all that traffic to get to the library. But it's worth it if it's gonna make it safer for people to be able to use the library, as safe as we can make it in our little tiny space.
You need to remember that and say that exactly like that.
And with the new parking top and the new entrance, you don't have to make that full
Oh, I can
turn
park
as
over there.
well.
There you go.
So just
That's right.
I'm doing my part.
Thank you very much for that.
We have a bit more landscape stuff on top of this, but it would be, again, really helpful to kind of fight for that.
I just have one other question. Could there not be, so back at, which is off the picture, the other end of that triangle
Go back.
where people want to turn left, could there not be a light put in?
Oh, God. Another light at the center of town, are you kidding?
It's too short.
Do you know the Hudson Road intersection is the most dangerous intersection we have in town, and people don't want a light there, and we're trying to put one there, and that is the
Oh,
most
really?
dangerous intersection we have.
Yeah.
So people would not take light leads, but it could easily be, it's more of a point at the corner, you could round that off, make it wider, make it I think there's stuff that could easily be done in that. I'll be honest, I only go that way, if I drive from here to there, I don't take a left at the lights, like that's silly to me to take a left and then the right on I go down and, wait a few seconds to take the left onto Common Road. It's not that big of a deal, in my opinion.
Well, just gathering my thoughts quickly. The materials for the landscape have changed a little bit, so I brought it up momentarily, but the wall, we're still studying what that could be, just because of pricing reasons. It is a long wall, so the material on that does add up eventually. So you can see on the left some options, including also the stone that we've looked at before. But we're also potentially thinking about like a board form concrete wall that would react to the kind of rhythm of the brick and of the composite siding as
What does
well.
that mean?
So you can choose like the width of the wood that the concrete is poured up against. And then that is expressed when the wood is pulled off. So you can,
Oh, I see the lines.
so you can
Okay.
see the lines on it.
Yeah.
It's actually, it's a pretty nice detail. And once you know what it is, you see it more often. But some other options that we've used before, like precast concrete walls and a concrete unit block walls. We're gonna get some of these things priced, including the stone wall and the 50% set. So we can kind of nail down what to do with this wall, because it is a cost item. But we do really want it to work with the building really well. So we're gonna work with G2 directly on this, and how it affects our stone base wall as well. We won't exactly match it either way, so we're not gonna go with a board form base on our wall, but we are going to be in conversation about it. Some other materials that I'm pretty excited about are like compact crushed stone and concrete plank pavers. I really liked compacted crushed stone. It has like a really nice feeling under your foot, and it looks really soft, but it actually feels quite hard, and permanent, but only when you feel it. It's a very cool material. And then on the historic entry, so the steps up to the new door that we're opening up are concrete unit pavers and like precast concrete steps and sheet walls.
When you did all the reshaping and there was that discussion of the water runoff situation, and if we were able to have so much water, I'm not describing this well at all, sequestered in a way that was gonna save us money, is that still on the table? And did that affect your paving choices?
So that does affect our paving choices, but actually not the materials listed here. So we will be getting rid of the infiltration basin, so where all of the stormwater would go to, and we are doing that because we're going to go with a permeable asphalt paver, just permeable asphalt, sorry, at the parking areas. And that way we're able to reduce it enough that we don't need the infiltration basin. The costs were a little hard to figure out for that, so it wasn't prepared today to present it. Unfortunately, we did spend some time looking at it. We're not entirely sure how it was carried in the previous estimate. It wasn't as a single element, and we didn't have a unit cost for permeable asphalts. And there's like more gravel involved with that, quite a bit more gravel. So the trade-off is there, but we're not entirely sure how much it would be.
There's been a discussion about raising money with bricks, selling bricks to raise money for the library. Where would that be?
That could fit in on the concrete plank pavers.
And they would be where?
Let me just check over here. So those are all within this walking path, kind of a meandering path. I can't say exactly how many there are, but
Yeah.
hundreds,
Okay.
potentially. And then there's larger pavers going up to the entrance and within the courtyard area.
Okay.
Did I zoom in?
Keep going. And I've also seen, they redid the Billerica Public Library years ago. And they were actually also selling like the granite step. So for a different price, you could buy like a step or you could buy a brick. So I don't know if there's opportunity for some of that on the historic entrance walkway, but those are options too in the fundraising world.
I'm not sure I am.
She didn't understand that.
That is worth maybe pausing on and talking about for a minute, because if that is a serious fundraising initiative, it'd be ideal to account for it, not obviously understanding everybody's name and all of that, but just a general quantity that we might expect so that we can build it into our contract documents and say, expect whatever, 200 engraved names on this type of paver, so that that's accounted for in the cost. We have, this is a very common fundraising approach, and can be very successful, but depending on how it works, oftentimes it's almost comes out in the wash, because if you're getting $50 for a paver, it costs just that much to engrave it. So it's a bit of a thing to be aware of, like, and when that happens, like if that happens at the very last minute,
Right.
and like a landscape sub has to react to that in the 11th hour of trying to finish the project, there'll be a premium to do it. So it's just something to think about. The more we can get ahead of it and anticipate it, the better, the better return there will be.
Okay, great.
So how much does one of those cost to make a difference? I mean, like, what's the reasonable amount?
It's been a little while since I've done one personally, but we could track that down. I think between us and Colliers and our cost estimator, we could come up with what it would cost to actually do it. Versus, so you could understand like what donation you'd be targeting to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
And they have separate companies, so if we wanted to do it as sort of not part of the project, that the fundraising group takes that on, and then it's just like, we need this. So it doesn't really change the estimate, because at the end of the day, we just won't be paying for those bricks. That's an option too, because there are certain companies that just specialize in brick fundraising campaigns. So, because it does happen a lot.
One of the libraries we visited has an interior wall that it's probably easier to update if you want to create another tier, but.
It's a little tacky,
it was-
showing how much people donated on a giant wall when you walked in.
Really?
They did that at the BD Center. in Concord.
It was Woburn.
Same thing.
I mean, it was nicely done, but you walked in and it was the tiers of how much people donated, their names were right there in front of you. It's a little odd. But something like, I mean, you could certainly do some sort of donation wall.
Just a quick anecdote, on that project that we shared a photo of up at Dartmouth, we renovated Dartmouth Hall, their original building on campus, and the donor campaign was, I think it ended up at like 3,800 names. Massive campaign, and actually won awards because of how successful of a campaign it was. But it was phenomenal because even if someone donated $1 million, and there were several people who donated at that, to a student who donated $50, everybody's name was the same size and just organized alphabetically. So it didn't matter. And it was just kind of as a gesture of like, look at all these people that came together. It was really, really, really powerful.
great.
So we have a wall with 3,800 names on it. And it's amazing. It's kind of, it's pretty impressive, but just to see it in that way, because it's not like the typical, your biggest
Big names
donations
and
at the
big letter-
top,
big
at the big
font.
letters. It was just everybody coming together. It was a very communal effort. So there's other ways to do it that feel more, less tacky, I guess I'll say.
Sorry, can I comment super quick on that?
Go ahead.
Of course.
Yeah, I definitely like the interior stuff versus the engraved bricks. Like I know the community park had issues with like how deep the engravings were and things like that. I also think it makes the buildings look a little tackier, but that's just a personal preference, but I just wanted to throw it out there that I think like focusing on an interior wall would be better.
Well, just a few more planting items. These are the trees that we're looking to install. They would, of course, be started smaller. It's really hard to show trees to somebody. They're not going to look just like this, similar to bricks, but they'll ultimately grow and be even more expressive than these. And the red bud will, of course, be staying too. Most love the red bud. And then there's some medium heights shrubbery around the fronts and on the back sides. And some ground cover.
Is this all focused on native plants?
I believe I think there's a percentage. It might not be 100% native. But it also includes the pollinator highway request as well.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Got the sustainability people on board. So can I ask a question about landscaping? And we can certainly talk about this more tomorrow. One of Mr. Moretti's biggest concerns is what trees are being removed behind the building. And from, obviously, from sort of the abstract drawing, it doesn't look like sort of here, all the existing trees are still outlined. And I'm wondering how accurate that is, and if you have an idea, and if you don't tonight, that's fine, but that is something that we will need to know, because he was very concerned. I think most of the trees along the granite posts are on his side of the property line. There's
Yeah.
one towards Common Road and the parking spaces that was straddling the line that he would like to keep, and then there's one that almost looks dead that I think we would agree doesn't need to stay, but we would need some idea of what trees in that back area would be impacted by the construction on the project.
So I definitely need to double check, but I'm pretty sure, yes, that 90-something% of them are on his property, so those will be staying. The one straddling, we'll need to check how to handle that, I'm not sure. And then the one in the parking lot, I believe is actually over the septic tank, and we will have to,
The sort of crazy tree.
I think so, yeah. And since we'll be replacing the septic tank, then we do have to.
So then that at least justifies why we have to remove it. Okay,
But I'm gonna double check all of that.
Yeah, yeah, we will, but I'm looking at the survey and, I mean, they don't locate all of the trees on our property, you know, the red bud, all the ones around the front along Common, all very clearly, and there's no trees indicated in the swath between the building and the property line, which suggests that they're all just on the neighbor's property. Confirm that there may be one up near the garage that kind of straddles a little bit, but other than that, I don't see others except the ones that Andrew mentioned by the septic
okay.
tank.
And then again, this is probably getting too far into it now, but there would be in the documents to protect those existing trees
Yeah.
that are on his property.
To the best possible way within the property of
There were a couple of select trees that he had identified that he really wanted to preserve. They were healthy and they provided privacy for him, right? So I want to say there were two that he had really kind of pointed at and said, let's make sure that we protect these. So we made provisions to just protect those during construction. I think would be covered. So we're not talking about a whole row of trees lining the entire property line, right? I think we're just talking about a couple of select trees.
Okay.
Well,
Or did I misunderstand that?
I don't think he wanted any trees to be removed.
No, not
Oh, you mean to protect?
not removed. I just mean the ones that are sort of in between the town's property and his. We should make sure that we just protect those, but not protect all of the trees.
Oh, right,
is
yes.
what I'm saying.
Yes, and I think if it was a matter of us needing his permission to go on his property to take the precautions, I think he'd be more than happy that he was
Yeah,
very
okay.
concerned about the
Yeah,
trees.
I guess I'm just saying, we don't want to own in our documents protecting 40 trees.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think we could protect 2 or 3, you know.
Okay.
we do have a tree protection plan already, so we'll we can update it to include what trees you all agree on to protect it.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm being sidetracked to look at our tree protection plan. The next topic is it's pretty important. It's a bit of a harder topic, not as exciting, but with all of the changes that came over the extent of this project, but especially including the VE items that we discussed at the last workshop, the Fitzmyer and Tachi, the engineering team, has stated that it's quite a bit of additional work that they didn't previously own, because they have to for a few of these things, but for the VE items, it's easy to understand. They have to kind of go back and redesign systems that they had already designed, since we're not using the air handler anymore. And so that includes additional hours, additional time. And that's one reason why we're pushing the 50% CD estimate out, is so that they have time to redesign that system. And so a few of the other items that have actually changed from the original proposal of this building are the modification to the fire protection system. So going to the MIST system, it's a very different design. than what was originally proposed. The adoption of the new stretch code, the specialized stretch code, and our goals of having all electric building is quite different than the kind of original intention and proposal of this building. The value engineering items and kind of the effort that they went through to assist with that, and then the actual what we landed on with the VRF and energy recovery and that whole design, and then on top of that is some assistance with the decarbonization grants. There's quite a bit of calculations that they need to perform for that. And so they've submitted an ad service of $52,000 and hourly for assistance with the decarbonization grants. We have discussed this, Ben and I have discussed this thoroughly, and Matt and John with them. We provided a lot of comments back to them. And this is kind of where we've landed on this. And we, unfortunately, we do think that these are all real items. You know, they've been doing a lot of work assisting with the presentations, assisting with value engineering, and with this redesign. And so we do believe they're owed this, and we would also like to get this approved so that they can continue to move forward at kind of a rapid pace.
I'll just add, if I may, just that, I think we were all a little disappointed and surprised by the number. I think Design Lab included, right? We're just a little taken aback by it, at least when we initially saw that 52,000 number. But to Andrew's point, after considering the changes that have taken place, essentially redesigning the system in its entirety, and then taking a look at what the hours are involved versus their hourly rates, in the end, I think we agreed that it was in line with what they're proposing. So, and we did have one request, which is reflected at the bottom there, that we address the decarb grant on an hourly basis as opposed to sort of a lump sum, because we can't quantify that in terms of hours right now. We just don't have the ability to do that. So that said, I mean, we're, as the OPM, are on board with this service as proposed, and find it to be fairly reasonable.
Is there a ballpark idea of what the decarbonization grant work will, I mean, do you have a general sense?
Yeah, as I said, I mean, it's kind of hard to quantify. There's definitely some calculations involved. I don't believe there's an energy modeling exercise involved. I think they feared that there might be, and that's why they came in at the initial number that they did. We do have to confirm that there isn't one. It's not something, this decarb grant, that we've done frequently enough to really be able to say, oh, that's 40 hours, so it's 10 hours. I'm guessing it's probably, somewhere between 8 and 12 hours, but again, that's why we want it to be done on an hourly basis. So
that'll be an additional cost that comes in after that grant is submitted.
once we know what time they had to spend to help get it completed. We'd rather be prepared for them to be involved, or them be prepared to be involved, as opposed to come to the time to assemble a grant application, say, F&T, we could really use their help here with a couple of calculations on BTUs for how, whatever. And then they say, oh, we're not prepared to do that. So at least now we're sort of prepared contractually, if you will, to take care of it when the time comes.
Motion to approve a $52,000 contract amendment plus an hourly cost for assistance with the decarbonization grant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay, take a roll call vote. Is everybody?
No, this is just the building.
Okay. Denise,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Tina, yes, Lisa,
Yes.
Kat? I'll go with Aisha. Yes. Marcy?
She's not on.
No. That's everybody. I can declare that unanimous. That's unanimous. Thank you, everybody.
Or you could consider Kat an abstention if she didn't vote.
Trying to say yes. I don't know if you can hear me.
Awesome, okay.
Thank you.
Could we, and I know we talked about this separately, but can we set a not to exceed number for the grant assistance? And then if we need to come back and reevaluate that, we can.
Yeah, we have that value. I think it was in their initial iteration, so we'll set that as the, yes, not to exceed.
Do you want that in the motion or no?
No,
Okay.
unless anyone else would like that in the motion, I'm happy with.
Yeah, we'll work with Fitzmyer on that, and I'll, thank everybody from the building committee. I know it's an uncomfortable topic. We don't take it lightly. I've had a lot of somewhat testy conversations with Fitzmyer before we got to this point. But I think in the grand scheme of things, as John and Matt suggested, it is appropriate. They didn't assume an all electric building when they put their proposal together. They didn't assume a MISP system. They have been very helpful, not just in the value management process over the past couple of weeks, but also in the just assessing the all electric building once the stretch code was adopted and figuring all of that out. So I don't care for it either, but I do think it's professionally appropriate, and we wouldn't put it forward if we didn't think that.
This was the first thing that Matt jumped into as well.
Welcome to the project. Good service.
Yeah, which was very helpful.
Definitely had a fresh look at it without sort of the context of why it was being put forward. But in reviewing it again, I'll just echo the comments that we found that it was had legitimate basis and seemed appropriate based on the rates that they had put forward. So.
That's it. So next steps, we are full steam ahead on drawing construction worthy details for this building. We still have the ZBA meeting. We still have some town department meetings and staff meetings, which I'd like to do this Friday and next week. Some of you.
A lot of people on vacation. So you'll have to send me the list. There's a lot of vacations.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we've been working with Tina and that so far, and then we have the estimate and the next workshop, which will be our final workshop. And we'll get back to you about like when we bring bricks to the building.
Yeah.
And kind of where we land on that. We're gonna think through some processing for that.
I just want to make sure everybody is clear. It's Wednesday, the 13th of September. It's not Wednesday in July. I think that was workshop 6. So we pushed that out. September 13th, yeah. So, and that's intentional, and we had that big gap anyway. But as much as we love all of you in these meetings, it's time for us to put the blinders on and really produce the contract documents. So when we come back to you on the 8th, it's really going to be reviewing where that estimate came in, reviewing the feedback that we heard from the staff and any town folks, and if we needed to react to anything that we heard from them. But that meeting on September 13th is going to be pretty limited to the cost, so that we can keep marching forward to the end of September and get the set ready for bidding.
And then again, special town meeting, it's Monday, September 18th, that has to vote this project. So hope y'all show up for that too.
Now, do you have a role at the select board meeting, or is that just us as the building committee showing up to support the discussion of Common Road?
No, I mean, I will have a conversation if anyone's available from Design Lab or Colliers, that's fine. I think it's more just having the conversation to get us to the next step. So.
Okay. And good question, because that's not on our radar. If we need to be there, if that's helpful to support the project, we could. The special town meeting on the 18th, is that something that we need to be present at?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that all right? Good.
You're welcome to,
I mean,
but no.
if we need to be, we can. It's not on our current calendar, but okay. And then I wanted to suggest one other thing. We keep joking about exploratory demo. I know we need to get past this town meeting on the 18th, and waiting until after that wouldn't give us a ton of time to react what we learned to by the end of September. Really, it's only 2 weeks, but it might be something that we consider. Either
Can I just put a hole behind one of my pictures in the wall? It's a little one,
Tunnel out.
just a little one.
I mean, it's probably just,
There's lots of holes in my office anyway.
yeah, I mean, what's the wall made of?
Where are you looking?
Well,
Just the
I mean,
turret?
we joke about that location a lot, but
Yeah.
like what's happening in that turret? And are there windows that are back there that have since been buried? Are they just openings that we then need to put windows in? That'd be really helpful to know. And there's a couple other locations that come to mind that we could identify that, a small 4-inch hole through plaster so we can get eyes back there would be beneficial.
I don't think that's a problem.
So we could
Right,
come up
Frank,
with
you
a.
don't,
No.
I mean, worst case scenario, I mean, we've already talked about the worst case scenario. If it does not pass town meeting, we have to go back to do whatever we can with $8,850,000. We have to do major repairs anyways, because the building is still falling apart. So if we have to fix a few more holes, so be it.
And for those of you that weren't here earlier, the air conditioner broke on the second floor, so.
So now we're canceling programs.
Oh, so we're gonna have fun tomorrow then?
Tomorrow, if you're already breaking walls. It's ready.
We'll just slowly fall down and there will be no
Come in, you just have the whole thing ripped apart.
We'll show up with hammers.
Okay, so, moving on to Matt and John's update.
Oh, yeah. We only have about an hour of material to go. Yeah, so OPM humor, but so I guess we'll just touch quickly on the fact that we do issue a monthly report. We did distribute the July OPM report to the committee that has facts and figures regarding finances and schedule. It's good to just remind the committee that you are getting invoiced specifically by 2 consultants, the 2 that are here right now with you. To date, we've been invoiced in the amount of $432,000, I believe, from Design Lab, and then $57,500 by Colliers. No other invoicing to date, although we are contracted now with your MEP commissioner and by your hazmat consultant, but no invoices to date from them. And then Design Lab always does a great job going over the schedule, so we won't belabor that. We do want to talk about the really fun topic of contractor pre-qualification. So we mentioned that at the last meeting. Essentially, that's a process of weeding out the contractors that don't have the capacity and the ability and the skills to do this type of a project. We're going to just pre-qualify general contractors, not subs. We do, as I said last time, want to, or we have to, as part of this process by statute, assign a subcommittee for pre-qualification. So that's going to be made up of 4 people at minimum. One of them is going to be a representative from Colliers. It won't be me. It's going to be Mr. Sturz here. We do need a representative from the architecture team. You folks can decide amongst yourselves who that's going to be, and then 2 members from the committee. So we'd ask for volunteers, and at the end, we would ask for a vote to officially form that subcommittee. So volunteers. Oh,
I
that's right.
volunteered last time. Is that, or do you need from the other committee?
I think it should be the building committee.
Yeah, I think the preference would be to keep it within the.
Good enthusiasm, though.
Appreciate that, yeah.
No one's ever been so quick for a pre-qual committee.
A couple of details about this too. We will meet virtually, not in person. I expect there to be like 4 meetings total, if that, maybe not even.
It's just generals, it's less to go through. It might be solvable in 3.
Yeah, so it's a relatively light lift. We'll only be getting not even a dozen calls packages, maybe not even 8 or 6. It's somewhere in between half a dozen and 10, I didn't anticipate. So my point being, not a huge time commitment. We're going to be with you every step of the way. We'll do the majority of the work, but we do need 2 volunteers.
I'll do it.
Okay, it's 1.
I feel like I'm bidding on something.
Yeah, yeah.
What
Against
sort
no
of
one.
expertise do you need? I mean,
You don't,
do
it's
this?
not that you require expertise so much as you just have to, there's a rubric that that we put together that goes out as part of the advertisement, and you really just compare the quals packages with this rubric, if you will, and just go page by page and just make sure they've met the requirements. You
Sounds like
don't,
what we did with these guys.
you don't
Yeah,
need
exactly.
the
I've been
expertise
there
in,
before.
in building construction, it's not required.
Is the schedule planned ahead of time? I mean, if I can work it into my workday, I'd be happy.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
join.
can meet during the day, right?
Okay.
Is that your preference? During the week, during the day, virtually, and again, 3 meetings.
Probably 3 or 4.
Sure, count me in.
Okay, so with that, I think we need a motion to formally approve the pre-qualification subcommittee.
Do we have to have someone from Design Lab identified now?
Pick somebody.
I'm happy to do it,
Great.
especially if it's during the day.
I make a motion that we approve the contractor pre-qualification committee consisting of Matt, Andrew, Lisa, and Tina.
I have a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? I'll take a vote. Okay, Denise,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Tina, yes. Lisa,
Yes.
Kat,
Yes.
Isha,
Yes.
and Marcy.
No, no Marcy.
Okay, that's unanimous, thank you.
Matt, unless you have anything, that concludes my portion of the OPM update.
Can I maybe add something? We should, just the prequel had me thinking, we should probably start thinking about coordinating instructions to bidders and Division 0 portions of the specification, and
Good addition, Ben.
we'll just, doesn't, I think that's more of us
Yeah.
than communicating to the building committee than
Mhm.
something we would do like in this type of
Yeah.
meeting, but we should think about that process.
Mhm. And some of the things that the town may want to include in among those sort of general requirements or the project, such as we want to establish the working hours, as we discussed earlier with the abutters and with the church. Things of that nature.
So we'll know more of that after the zoning meeting, because I would expect a lot of that into the permit that they issue.
It's
The
probably,
variance and such.
probably something now we just add to the weekly check-in agenda. And when the time comes to start talking about it in detail, we can either use that slot, or if we need to make a second
Yeah.
one, we can.
I make a motion that we approve the Design Lab invoice for June 30th, 2023 in the amount of $120,955.25.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Okay, Denise,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Tina, yes, Lisa,
Yes.
Kat?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, that's unanimous, thank you.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the July 12th, 2023 Library Building Committee 2.0 and Exterior Design Committee minutes.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
I have one correction.
Yes.
Very minor modification. I listed as a member of the exterior committee. I think it should be Kat.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Denise,
As amended, yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Tina, yes, Lisa,
Yes.
Kat?
Yep. Yes.
Thank you. Melissa,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
unanimous, thank you. That's anything else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved 8:35.
I think that's the
Wow.
quickest one.
It's tip of your tongue.
We've been meeting since 4.
Well, when you put it that way.
Yeah.